Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Hubbardston Open Space Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town website. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via Zoom. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website a comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay, that being said, now let's go back to Zoom. See if I get back to the correct screen. There we go. All right. Woo, that was easy.
Hi, Bob. Hi, Steph.
Hi.
So let's, I can see that we have Todd, Mark, Susan, Rick, myself, and Steph on the meeting. So we have a quorum. So I will call the meeting to order. And Cynthia Henshaw is already in attendance, as people can see that Cynthia is here. And one of the agenda items is to go over the status of the Fieldstone property. And we'll do that first, and then we'll catch up on minutes and financial stuff and go through the rest of the agenda as it is posted. So, Cynthia, you want to take the lead relative to explaining where we're at this instant in time?
Sure, thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to check in with you guys and bring everybody up to date on where we're at and next steps, and get your feedback, primarily your feedback about what more and next steps to do. So the East Quabbin Land Trust did contract to get an appraisal done on the Fieldstone Farm property, the 275 acres on Lombard Road, in many parcels, but two large chunks, and did that in partnership with the town and the Department of Conservation and Recreation. The portion that's west of Lombard Road directly abuts one of the a portion of the Wachusett Mountain State Park, and so they are interested in conserving that and acquiring that piece of it, and they're interested in conserving the portion east of Lombard Road because it directly connects between the additional land, then Henry's Grove, which is the East Quabbin Land Trust existing 94 acres. Across from that is the other 149 acres, and that abuts with privately held CR land and conservation land and the Bickford Pond area, and that all links eventually over to Wachusett Mountain as well. So we did get an appraisal done, and that appraisal came back and had some further discussions with Sean Preventure, the land agent for Department of Conservation and Recreation, about their interests. And they are interested, and they've made commitments right now that we're working on formalizing. So having that, and in some direct conversations with other folks, including Bob, the Land Trust has gone ahead and made an offer, and we have an agreement, but we don't have the offer agreement has been signed. We're working on putting together the purchase and sales agreement to kind of codify that and specify the time frame and the conditions that go with it, that were part of the offer at that time. And so we're moving forward. What I wanted to touch base with you all is kind of more specifics about what that offer is, what it entails, how we envision being able to raise the funding to do the acquisition. So the yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I mean, this is a public meeting, right? So appraisals typically aren't, let's just think about this. Appraisal numbers aren't typically stated until the deal is done. But
Bigger than a bread box?
but the other thing is that we also need to go ask for public funds. So in a certain respect, I mean, Bob, are you okay, the Open Space Committee, okay with having the numbers in public at this meeting? I mean, we're going to have to share them by going to the CPC. So I'm okay with that, but before I say anything,
What is the hesitation?
Because typically appraisal values, they're an opinion of value. We are using it. It is being set. We are buying the property at that price. So I mean, I think it's okay, but I just want to make sure that you're okay.
Has anybody got any objections to seeing the appraisal values and then where we are going from there?
Nope.
All right, hearing none, then go ahead.
Okay, great. So the appraisal came in as a total for $650,000. The division of that is the appraised value for the west side of the road was $250,000. So that is the portion that the Commonwealth wants to purchase. And the $400,000 was the value for the portion east, the 149 acres east of Lombard Road. And on that side, we had a.
Let me interrupt for 1 second. On that, on the appraisal expedition, if you want to call it that, East Quabbin Land Trust engaged an appraisal person that's done this kind of stuff before. And we had Sean there, myself, Cynthia.
Linda and Steve came, a little Jassy was there.
Yeah. And Jassy was there, Steve was there. So there was a group that walked it with the person that did the appraisal.
Correct. And we walked both sides of the road. So I'm sorry, in terms of the appraised value for the east side of the road, the 149 acres, we had both a before value, so before it's restricted, and that was valued at $400,000. And we also had him value it after restricted, and that value after was $50,000. So the difference, the conservation restriction value, which is the difference between the two. So if you have 400,000 and you subtract 50,000, the conservation restriction value is $350,000. So those are the general numbers that we're working with. DCR is.
Does everybody understand that? Mike probably does, but that's kind of new terminology to me. What's the significance of that?
Well, because the significance of the before value and the after value and how that makes defines the conservation restriction value. Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Yep. So an appraiser is giving you basically an opinion of the value of the property. And if you want to conserve the property through a conservation restriction, what you need to do is to decide what the value of the property is before it's restricted. So the $400,000, and the value after a conservation restriction is placed on it. So knowing, he knew that, with the standard conservation restriction language from the Department of Conservation and Recreation, which also requires public access. So that was a big component of that. So that's why after it's restricted, the value on the land, his estimate was $50,000.
I understand the before part. How do you arrive at an after? What's the significance of an after restriction value?
Because there is still some value in owning the land inherently. If putting a conservation restriction, so any property owner still has some value in the land. So a conservation restriction value is not the whole amount of the before value, because there's still value in owning the woods and having to be able to do the trails, doing wildlife habitat, you know, the kind of the conservation management stuff that we all want to do, and we're proposing for this, for the 149 acres. There is financial value in that. So people do buy restricted land because they want to have a woodlot, or they want to have a place where they can camp for the summer or something, you know, so there is value. It's much reduced because you can no longer build houses. You can no longer, I mean, the key components of a conservation restriction eliminate, you know, mining, dumping, paving, and building, right? Especially the residential housing component is what we're really seeing in terms of value.
I don't want to go. I don't want to bog this down on getting into the nitty gritty.
Can I jump in here, Bob?
Yeah.
So Cynthia, is East Quabbin contemplating a fee purchase here? It hardly seems worthwhile pursuing a CR.
Well, no. So what we're going to do is pre-acquire. The proposal is to pre-acquire the whole 275 acres, and then work through the process. So one thing is going to happen with the west side of the road, and another thing's going to happen with the east side.
Right,
of the road.
right. I'm talking about the east side
And so,
specifically.
on the east side of the road, the East Quabbin Land Trust is contemplating continuing ownership of that. So the $50,000, right, is part of our commitment to conserving the property, and then selling a conservation restriction to the Department of Conservation and Recreation, because they're willing to put money in towards the CR value, but not the whole thing. So there still needs to be additional fundraising through, and that's part of what I wanted to talk to you all about, you know, part of that gap. So it's a $225,000 gap that's needed to kind of fill that whole $400,000 bucket. If the land trust puts in $50,000 of its own funds to buy the restricted land, DCR is putting in $175,000. Did I get that right, or is it 200? Maybe it's 225. And so one of the funding mechanisms is going to be I'm going to put together foundation requests to private foundations for support for conservation of this. Also would like to ask Hubbardson the CPC committee to put it on the town meeting warrant article for next spring. I would like to request $75,000 towards conservation of the property. And then we'll still need to do individual fundraising in order to actually cover all of the costs. So there are different buckets in order to raise that whole $400,000 to conserve the east side of the road. And those are the general buckets that we're talking about. Does that make sense? Do you want me to run through that one more time?
Here's what I have, Cynthia. We've got East Quabbin Land Trust at 50K, DCR at 175. Funds, donations, and other things that you're going to pursue, 50,000, and Hubbardson CPC 75. Does that sound right?
Yep. If I did my math right, yep. Yes.
Okay.
So I'm approximating, I will put in more requests from private foundations, more requests than $50,000, but they don't all come through, or you don't get fully funded. So I'm estimating $50,000 in that bucket. If we can do individual fundraising and try to, you know, with a goal of $50,000 in that bucket, if we can request $75,000 from the town through the CPA dollars, and then DCR's commitment of 175.
What was DCR's total commitment?
Their total commitment was 425, and they had divided it slightly differently, but you and I had already discussed
Yeah, we have
about
to reallocate that, right?
them fully funding their own acquisition of the 425 that they were going to allocate towards conservation of both sides of the road. To buy outright the west side, the 126 acres for the 250 that it appraised at.
Yeah, then to just make that clear, DCR wants to own totally on their own the west side, and and they had an approximate distribution of those funds, which was off by 25K. They had, I think, 225 for the west side, but the appraised value, which is what the agreement that East Quabbin eventually negotiated with the seller, was 250. And so the idea was just to reallocate the grand total of what DCR had proposed, to take 25 out of the east side and put it towards the west side, so they could attain their goal, so DCR could attain their goal of total ownership of the west side.
Right. We did try to offer less than the appraised value, and we didn't tell them what the appraised value was, but that got rejected. And in conversation, it seems like this is a high enough priority for the community. It's certainly a high enough priority for the land trust to continue to move forward. And with DCR's commitment, I mean, they're funding basically 2/3 of the project to start. So, that's a pretty good chunk to start with.
I mean, but my own personal insight into this is just, which is not new news to what's going on real estate wise as it relates to COVID. Really, the rural properties are going up in value quite significantly, and so I was not surprised that the seller wouldn't go. The offer that was initially made was 625, and I'm not surprised that the seller would not go below the appraised value. They obviously didn't know what the appraised value was that we had done, correct, Cynthia?
Obviously. Right, they don't know.
But it's not surprising that they did not go below that 650 appraised value. That's my own insight into it.
So one of the things that I wanted to chat with the Open Space Committee about is, in order to, one, be successful with the request to the town for CPA dollars, people need to understand the value, the conservation value of the parcel, and be willing to vote to expend some of the monies that come through the CPA component towards this project. And of course, we need to do some individual fundraising. So, starting to think about what is the most valuable way or process to move forward the education of the community about what we're doing. So that's my real question to you, and discussion that I'd like to get feedback on. In terms of time frame, we're still putting together the purchase and sales. Our offer, we have to have it done by the end of the month, and then we need to purchase the property by the middle of December. And that purchase has a few contingencies in it. It requires that one, that the CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, is willing to move forward the request to expend funds for town vote. So I've had an initial discussion with Susan and Stephanie about that, because they sit on that committee. DCR does need to give us a memorandum of understanding or agreement where they've signed off and committed the funds, so that we know that those funds are committed. And DCR requires clear title, which everybody requires. And also they require an environmental site assessment, which is a phase 1 site assessment is basically, walking around, making sure that there's no oil drums or hidden, anything hidden that would be an environmental hazard before purchasing property. And they need to do that, not on both sides, but they need to do that on the west side, the 126 acres.
Are the DCR funds for 2021 or 2022?
This fiscal year.
2021.
2020, right, 2021, yep.
So in order to make this deal work, we have to fill the $50,000 hole before next June?
Right. Right. So the way it's set up right now is the land trust is going to pre-acquire it. We know DCR is going to buy their part. And so what we're trying to do is to fill, in order to sell the conservation restriction to permanently conserve the east side of the road, we need to raise those additional dollars.
before, by next spring.
By next spring. Yep. By June 30th. I mean, hopefully we'll do it sooner
Well,
than
what,
that, but it's going to
uh,
require a town meeting vote and all of that. So I don't know exactly when all that's going to be scheduled.
could you clarify the time frame thing? Because I'm just through Ralph Baker, he got me in contact with a potentially significant contributor from the Boston area. And I've been in contact with her, and they've got a circle of friends. They're people that are interested in protecting the environment. And they really bought into Ralph Baker's climate change salvation via saving forests. And so so I've been in contact with this person, and she has a circle of friends in there, and they are dead serious about contributing towards the salvation of the planet in simple terms. So at any rate, so that's one potential source of funding. But the relative to the timing of funding, you're going to hold a note on the property.
We're going to own the property.
Yep. When can money come in to pay off that loan?
So the way when we've done pre-acquisitions before and projects like similar characteristics, it's happened in two different ways. People can make contributions as soon as they want to, and they get allocated, they list on their letter or on their check, however the money comes in, where the money is designated, right? So the land trust,
it gets paid it's a donation, a contribution, what is it?
A donation. Yep.
Okay.
To
East Quabbin Land Trust, but for a specific cause or something.
Exactly. So people make contributions to the land trust towards the Fieldstone Farm property, which I'm assuming we're going to continue to call it that. We track those contributions that come in, and when all of the paperwork and everything is ready, if hopefully the town votes to do this, and obviously we'll know that DCR is going to be doing it, so that in the springtime, monies may have come in advance, and we would then apply those towards the sale of the conservation restriction to DCR. And if people don't want to make contributions right now, but want to make pledges, that's great too, knowing that they're going to be willing to commit if we get to a certain level, or however they want to work it out. That is also possible. So, plenty of times we get grants and they're reimbursable grants. So we have to go ahead and do the activity before we get reimbursed. So we can work in either way.
Now, so I guess a couple of questions as it relates to this. I mean, suppose this benefactor that I'm aware of through Ralph Baker, suppose they come in with $100,000 and we don't need as much money from CPC. How does that work?
Then we make adjustments in what our request to CPC is.
Can that adjustment be made at the town meeting?
I would think so, but Susan, because you can adjust motions on the floor at town meeting for anything, it'd be better not to do it that way, but I would think that it could be.
Anybody got to come? Yeah, that's what I would guess, is that there'd be and certainly people would be amenable to having less taken out of the CPC thing with an amendment to the article at the town meeting floor. But all right, so that's about how I thought that would go down. Now, relative to contributions from private sources, could they come in November of 2021?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. We take contributions for all kinds of conservation projects and all kinds of things.
Because obviously these things are tax deductible. So there may be issues relative to when they make those contributions that are going to be much more beneficial to the tax benefit situation. So
what are you looking at for a closing date on the purchase of the property?
December 16th.
Okay.
So
So
from my perspective, here's the scenario that I see. I mean, East Quabbin Land Trust is stepping out on a limb because
Right.
even if even if CPC puts a request in for 75,000, we cannot guarantee a town vote. What we can guarantee is we'll work to provide to gather support for that, but we cannot obviously guarantee a specific vote at the meeting. So
That there's risk here. Yes.
what happens in the risk? I mean, in the event that the town votes it down, what happens here? This is the first time I've gone through this kind of a scenario, and obviously there's risk. Hopefully, with a lot of work, that risk will be low, but there's still risk. So what happens?
Well, there's two avenues that can happen, or maybe three, maybe more, but these are the ones that are rattling off the top of my head. If the town votes down the CPC, we can see if we can renegotiate with DCR, and if this the CPC committee and open space think, well, we should just try it again, then we can ask DCR to hold on to their funds for the following fiscal year and delay putting a conservation restriction on. So that's one kind of alternative. Another alternative is we've raised enough funds privately and the private foundations have responded so well that the actual gap is not as great, and the land trust can agree to just accept and to invest its own dollars more than the $50,000 than we were planning on. So that's a third one. Or we can say we get to the end and none of it seems like it's going to work, and we can say, well, I'm sorry, you guys, I don't see how we're going to be able to conserve this because people just aren't supporting it, and we need to either find another buyer or we need to, so
you will own it, and if the funding falls through, then you could sell it on the private market, just like the current people are trying to sell it on the private market.
We could. That's of course not what we're going for.
Yeah, I understand that.
But legally we have that. I mean, legally that is our option, just as anybody who owns land that's unrestricted. Okay. So until we put the conservation restriction on, I mean, that's why the conservation restriction is so important. No, I mean, that's why that piece of it is so critical to get done. If at some point in the future, the East Quabbin Land Trust decides it doesn't want to own these lands in Hubbardston anymore, at least we know both properties, the Henry's Grove already has a conservation restriction on it, and the Fieldstone Farm will get it all done. It will have a conservation restriction on it.
Those are easy to do, right, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal that we're all going for, because we understand the conservation values of having connected lands for all of the values that go with that, not just the recreation component, but the wildlife habitat, all the biomat 2, the priority habitat, all of that's on all these properties. Yeah.
Okay, I'll bring up one more aspect that I've already broached with Cynthia relative to utilization of the properties. And maybe two aspects. The first one would be, what is the CR situation as it relates to the east side? The west side is simple. DCR wants to own it, period, end of story. But I'll go back to that relative to utilization. On the east side, there's multiple contributors towards that. How is the CR structured? Who owns the CR? Like DCR is putting in a bunch of money. They want to have some say in the CR, I would assume.
They're holding the CR. So DCR is the principal party negotiating between the East Quabbin Land Trust and DCR. And basically, we're going to get given a template, and that's pretty much what we need to go with.
And it would be DCR parks, not water supply, right?
Correct.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
since there are other significant sources of funding for that east side, why are they the sole holders of the CR?
Well, they're going to be so DCR does not like to co-hold conservation restrictions. So they're I asked Sean this because I wasn't sure if using town CPA dollars required the town to have an actual interest. And I subsequently have learned that that's not true. Towns don't have to hold an interest, but there does have to be like a publicly held interest. And so DCR holding the conservation restriction, it meets that qualification. So the town can put in dollars, private individuals and private foundations can put in dollars to it. But we, the East Quabbin Land Trust, are gonna have to meet whatever DCR wants, which I think we're all basically in agreement with. Sean has not sent me a template CR yet to share with you, or even to read for myself, but I mean, they're about recreation. So they're about the trail component, which I know is what we've been talking about most. They will allow forest management. They will probably allow, field maintenance. So if we decided we wanted to mow those fields, I mean, I'm not convinced that we necessarily want to do that, but the conservation restriction might allow that. They're going to allow wildlife habitat work. That I think we will want to do. They are going to want to have, wetland protection and water supply protection kinds of things. So all of those, the mission and the focus of DCR, the parks component, I think dovetails very well with what we're wanting to do. And by having DCR be responsible for the conservation restriction, it means that the town isn't responsible for the annual monitoring and any enforcement. Not that you're gonna have to enforce with East Quabbin Land Trust, but that is a long-term commitment that whoever holds a conservation restriction does have that role to play.
Okay, we just gone through a conservation restriction that Mark basically generated, and there was and it's held by North County. But we had a lot of say with relative to what went into that. And Mark may be the best source of a response on this. How much say will we have in what goes into that relative to trails or other things that we might want there?
This negotiation is going to be between East Quabbin and DCR. But as Cynthia alluded to, I think we're pretty much all on the same page here. And I really wouldn't expect any onerous demands from DCR that we wouldn't be happy with.
Okay. So so it'd be similar to what we went through with the North County CR that we just generated.
Yeah, except the town isn't involved. East Quabbin is taking the role that we had on the Malone Road one.
Well, and I would say technically it's gonna be the same, but it's gonna be a different format. I mean, DCR is gonna have their own template. So, I mean, I'm assuming that North County probably started with the state template format. So it might look a little different, but when you actually get down to the nitty gritty, it's gonna be, you can't remove stone walls, and you have to have a forest management plan before you do anything. And it's gonna be fairly similar in terms of what the actual requirements are.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I didn't really have anything to add. I see a lot of these DCR CRs all the time, and they follow pretty closely on the model CR that we started with.
Okay.
Okay.
It's not going to be dramatically different from what we've seen before.
And the significance of this as it relates to, as we communicate things, like Susan and Steph at a CPA meeting, and then even more so as we go forward and try and solicit funding support as well as just plain town support, we want to be able to communicate to people what is likely to be available for them as an environmental resource, trails, et cetera. If it's just something that you can look at as you drive down the road, you're not going to get much support. But if you have something that you can say there'll be trails developed there, so you can go on walks or equestrian use or whatever it might be, then you're going to gain a lot more support. So we need to be able to communicate to people what will be available on this property. So when will that kind of information be available so that we can start using that information?
Right. So I think first thing is seeing the DCR template that Sean Provencher sends forward so that we know kind of what the baseline level is for them. So I'll forward that to you as soon as he sends it to me. And then kind of depending on how they frame the trail component, eventually if we're buying it mid-December, we're going to need to have a management plan done on it. And part of all of that is going to be brainstorming, where do we want trails? What do we need to see?
Yeah.
What are the priorities? How are we going to connect? Because part of this is to connect with Henry's Grove, from my point of view, is to have the 94 acres, right? So the timber sale is happening there now. And so once that's done, we have to figure out what the actual trail network is on Henry's Grove. And then now that we're talking about the land across the road, how we're going to connect it. I mean, the original vision for Henry's Grove was to have basically a figure 8, so that you could get all the way down to the water but come back on a separate trail. And this land may work. That may be good too. I don't know. I don't have the answer for that, but
no, I know you don't right now, but that's the point of that is that's really important.
Yep.
To be able to tell people what they can expect as a result of successful passing of a motion or a agenda item at the town meeting. Now,
so let me just answer. So at a minimum, the conservation restriction is going to have public access, right? So broad scale public access. So even if nothing changed with the existing trails, there would be those trails available. But I think our planning, as we think about it together and internally, as we think about it, we're going to want to look at the existing trails and are those in the right spot? Do we want more? And where would they go?
As well as trail improvement and things like that. I mean, those trails as we walked them in the spring or earlier in the year weren't too bad to go down through. As we walked them recently, not so much. I mean, they were overgrown, so you need to be able to do maintenance, et cetera, to make it a pleasant walk.
Yep.
All right. So just the general phraseology that there will be public access. That's to me, that's motherhood and apple pie, and that's about it. You'd want to know some specifics about what that public access is. And I don't expect an answer right now, but that's what we do need to be able to.
It'll be broad scale passive public access. So non-motorized vehicles.
Yeah,
but it'll be, equestrian, it'll be hiking, it'll be bird watching, hunting.
Biking.
There's no water, so not fishing, but hiking. Yep.
Okay.
Biking.
Oh, biking. Yes, biking.
Now, what about the west side?
So that's going to be DCR ownership, and they will do the same thing. I mean, I went to the state website and pulled out that piece that they have, because DCR has reserve areas and they have managed areas, and then they have parklands. And this is my assumption, because the land that they can currently own is classified as parklands, that the 126 acres will also be classified as parklands. So I presume that they will not be managing for forest management. They won't be doing timber harvesting in parklands. But they do it's all the recreation component.
Any comments, Mark?
No, sounds right to me.
So you think that they would be amenable to, I mean, that's some really nice stuff on that west side, as we know, because we've walked it a couple times. So they'd be amenable to having some sort of a trail network, even if it were just a loop. So you think they'd be amenable to that? And Mark's laughing, so.
It would probably be a slow moving process, Bob. And I mean, they wouldn't have a philosophical objection, but I don't think there would be any commitment up front that that's what was going to happen.
But I think
Who has to say in that? Would Sean be able to have much of a say on his own, or would he probably be quiet because he doesn't know what the rest of the DCI is going to say?
well, I mean, there are regional managers, and I don't know who the regional manager is for the Wachusett Mountain Reservation, but it's those folks. And I think one of the things that we should consider, and I know that the East Quabbin Land Trust would welcome as well, would be some sort of subcommittee who is interested in the trail component and coming up with a trail vision so that we can implement that on both Henry's Grove and the new Fieldstone Farm component. And we can incorporate the DCR ownership so that there's like this broader network, and the trails on these parcels are thought about kind of holistically instead of piecemeal, so that they all match and meet up. That the trail signage and the ability to get from one place to another is clear.
That sound like a realistic possibility, Mark?
Yeah, it just takes time to put it all together.
Okay, but we wouldn't run into a stone wall like we have with DCI watershed.
No. This is the existing parcel is part of Wachusett.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So this would be as well. So it would fall under Dwayne in the central region, and he's pretty much a trail proponent. So
That's the same Dwayne. That sounds like there was a guy named Dwayne, I think, that we worked with when we put the culverts in on Gates Hill.
yeah, ultimately he would have. I mean, more directly, you would have been dealing with what's her name?
Yeah, female.
Wachusett Mountain. But anyway, her supervisor is Dwayne.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I met him when we did the culvert. So.
Okay.
Okay, I think I've got most of my questions addressed here. Questions from anybody else? Todd, Rick, Susan, Steph?
Yeah, while we have everybody here, Cynthia, as far as CPA, the sooner the better. That first draft thing it was just terrific. And if Steph, myself, you could, or anybody else that's interested, to get that refined and submitted ASAP, and then if something is submitted, then a meeting will be scheduled. Otherwise, the meeting was going to wait until January. But if we could get that in by the end of this month, why not? I don't know. What do you think?
I think I will. I will have time tomorrow evening I saw that you had given me corrections, and I can incorporate
crazy ideas, but
yeah, but I can incorporate more of that stuff.
Okay.
Tomorrow evening, I have a number of various appointments tomorrow, but yeah, so I would try to get that back to you before the end of the week.
Oh, or even just the end of the month. As long as and then I could do the copies and get it submitted, or however, but just, I'm thinking the sooner the better for just.
How is it? I mean, I'm happy to do the 10 copies as well.
Oh, okay.
Should I get them to you, or how does, send that to the town hall, or what?
Well, that's what I'm not sure of. I honestly, do you have to be from Hubbardston to submit something to the Hubbardston CPA folks? I don't know. I'm still a rookie on this. Does anybody? Yes, Cynthia.
I would just say that, so I live in Templeton, and we also have CPA,
Mhm.
And I know that the North County Land Trust has a property just down the road from us, and they got funds to do habitat work. So
So they submitted it as North Quab and
North County, I don't know exactly how they
yeah,
submitted
North
it, but if it meets the guidelines, yeah, it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. So,
Because the funding has to come, the town has to give the funding to the entity. So I wouldn't want the entity to, yeah, I mean, the town's not going to vote to give funding to an individual
of
person.
course not, right. But I just wanted to, it just caught me off guard. I said, is this, how would people, but that's how it's done then. That's protocol.
I think so.
It would
And
have to
how
be.
about if we, how about if I make
Yes.
modifications and we'll submit it? And then if the CPC thinks that it should be done in a different way, I'd be happy to make modifications again.
Well, is everybody comfortable? If anybody else is interested, Steph, you there?
Yeah,
That maybe the three of us at some point could get together, or anybody else that's interested, because Cynthia, for background here, gave a great, she's got the guts of it together. Maybe some things could be emphasized and other, add some things, but it's just about, it could be ready to go quite soon, it looked like to me. And so I'm looking from the money angle though, the playground, it's going to be tight. And so I think the 75 amount is much more doable than another decimal place of 100. Even at that though, it will be tight because we're finishing up 3 more payments on the library roof. We're done with that, 24. But when the playground starts, I'm gonna have to talk to Ryan and say that if they really are looking for 150, they're gonna have to spread it out over as long as it can be. Do you see what I'm saying? Because that took a big chunk out of us, 50,000, boom, for that, which is a good cause. But then I just want to make sure that we're next in line, because if somebody else submits something, but this definitely is the guidelines. It was well written and it's
So
terrific.
I
Okay,
thought,
as it relates to this CPA stuff, what's the link from CPA to the Open Space Committee?
What's the link?
none,
Are we pushing this forward, or does it like you alluded to, that this is East Quabbin sort of petitioning to have this be put on?
Cynthia can answer that.
Yep, go ahead,
Because-
Cynthia.
Well, I would just say, having just filled out the application from Hubbardson, it does ask which committees have approved the project. So it would be great to have the Open Space Committee vote to approve application for this effort.
Okay, that's kind of what I was getting at. What's requested of this committee as it relates to that CPA funding? So,
Just that we're supporting it, but
well,
financially we don't have.
we're supporting the acquisition of the property, and that we're supporting the request for $75,000. Those are the two specific things, right?
But the request isn't for the acquisition of the property. It's more like the request is for the CR.
The conservation restriction. Yep.
So when we ask the town to vote it, we're asking them to vote to put a CR, to put $75,000 on a CR on that land. We're not asking them to purchase that land.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
People,
I can see a lot of questions on that. So we're purchasing what?
Yeah,
So-
that'll be challenging.
yeah. Yes.
so my understanding, Susan, was that if the request met the guidelines,
Yeah.
that CPC has to,
Oh, CPC would approve it, don't you think, Steph?
Oh yeah. Well, we don't have a choice. I mean, it meets the guidelines. But
If we
you
have the
can't-
money though,
we-
and it's
We
going
can't
to be
say,
tight.
you can't say like, all right, well, we're next in line, because somebody else might come in with, a historical society might come in with something that the town at the exact same time, and they both have to go to,
they have to go to the town, right?
yeah, they both have to
If-
go. It's a
If they
town
meet the
decides. It's
guidelines,
just-
yeah.
Right. Regardless of
Yeah.
the-
So it's just, yeah, it fits the guidelines. I don't see any reason why it would not go to town vote. It's more of like, how are we gonna sell it to the town? How are
Exactly.
we gonna
When
convince
when-
everyone in town to go and vote for this?
when you get a final draft of the application, do you just want to send it around to everybody? So if we have any questions or
Are you
comments. we can-
comfortable with that, Cynthia?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Yeah, it's a great, I mean, she covered so many bases in it, but just as much input as people, so.
Well, is there anything we can do at tonight's meeting to move that forward so we don't have to have an additional meeting to approve supporting it
Well,
or whatever?
that was the sort of the behind the scenes gist of what my comment was. Are we looking for someone to make a motion that we
Support.
support I don't know, what's it called when you
CPC.
want something, allocating a certain amount of money from CPA towards what?
Towards the conservation restriction on 149
Towards-
acres.
Towards a purchase of it, a contribution towards it?
No,
Towards,
conservation restriction.
but we're not going to own the conservation restriction.
Right, the request is for $75,000 towards the conservation restriction on 149 acres on Lombard Road that will be, and the conservation restriction will be held by the Department of Conservation and Recreation.
So it's towards benefiting open space in the town of Hubbardston.
Well,
Yes.
that's true, but
And the town has no liability or responsibility towards the
maintain it.
long-term
Yeah.
no maintenance of the conservation restriction.
I guess what I'm struggling at is if somebody within the confines of this meeting needs to make a motion, but it needs to, I'm struggling with the words of what the motion would read like.
Support funding of open space on Lombard Road.
No, but it's got to be towards supporting the CI. We're not buying it. What is the 75,000
That
do
is part,
relative to the CR?
that is part of the cost of doing of the conservation restriction. So really the request of the Open Space Committee tonight is to support East Quabbin Land Trust application to the CPC for $75,000
Okay.
that goes towards ensuring the placement of a conservation restriction on 149 acres on Lombard Road.
Yeah,
Does one of us have to repeat that?
well,
By the Department of Conservation and Recreation,
which will be held by DCR.
which will be held by DCR.
You want to run that by again, Cynthia?
I'm not
It's
sure.
all recorded.
I'm not sure I'm going to get it in the same order.
That's all right.
The request to the Open Space Committee is to support East Quabbin Land Trust's application
CPC.
and to CPC, which requests $75,000
Yep.
towards the funding of a conservation restriction
Yep.
on 149 acres
Yep.
on Lombard Road, where the conservation restriction will be held by the Department of Conservation and Recreation.
Okay. Well, also moved. Do you want me to repeat it, Bob?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'd like to hear what you've got, how you interpreted
Well,
it.
plus he
because
has to.
I got it pretty much word for word. I move that the Open Space Committee support East Quabbin Land Trust application to the CPC to request $75,000 towards funding of a conservation restriction on 149 acre property on Lombard Road to be with the CR to be held by the Division of Conservation and Recreation.
The Department of Conservation and Recreation.
Department, yeah.
Okay, let's, is there a second to that? And then before we have a vote on it, I'd like to ask for comments on that. Does anybody want to second that motion?
Todd.
All right, now, comments or discussion on that motion? Anybody got any comments, questions? No? All right.
I mean, the comment is that it's going to be a hard sell at town meeting, but it's a worthy cause, so we'll give it a try.
Okay, that's a good comment. All right, so let's take a vote, and we need to do this. This is a pretty significant item. So I'll go down and just go name by name. Stephanie,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and myself, I support this, so that'd be another yes. All right, very good. So that motion passes. All right. I think we're done with this. It took a bit, but it was definitely a lot to talk about. So
Great.
May I ask a follow-up question, or do you want to
you
go on?
certainly can, no, you
No,
can certainly have.
you're here.
So you think it's going to be a hard sell at town meeting? Is that because the town will not be co-holding the CR?
No, I don't think that plays into it. But there's a lot of resistance in town to the notion of restricting uses of property.
So it's just the general concept of a conservation restriction.
Yeah.
And money.
We're restricting it from development, which is probably one of the big areas of resistance. I don't think anybody's going to resist being able to, have a problem with, using it for hiking, hunting, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's more has to do with, we don't need open space. Let's develop it, bring more dollars into Hubbardston that way.
Although my sense, I mean, I haven't been in town that long, but my sense is even over just the last couple of years, there's been more influx of conservation-minded people, and the dynamic is starting to move away from that.
I agree with Mark. It's just a different starting of a different inertia going in
Oh.
that direction.
Cynthia asked a question of me, just you guys behind this, and then I didn't speak for the whole committee, and but then I know with subsequent comments from Susan and Steph that those two in particular are gung-ho and want to start scheduling walks, and that's what it's about. I mean, it's individual people contributing to things. I'll digress for a second here. I mean, I was on a NCTLT North County webinar just the other day, and I had serious reservations about how it was being orchestrated, and that they were thinking about communities passing things. And I said, community's not going to pass anything. It's not going to get anything done. It's individuals that get things done. So it's doing things like having walks. And we know a lot of people just here at the farm that love open space. And so we just need to get individual support. If I look at town meeting attendance, you might be talking about, 150 people. The attendance at a town meeting is not huge. And if you can make sure you get 75 to 80 people that are going to support this thing at a town meeting, you're going to be in pretty good shape. And that sounds like a reasonable number. I mean, so at any rate, so that's my take on just the overall support thing. It's certainly in my perspective, it's certainly attainable, but it takes things like what Susan and Steph talked about doing walks out there. In conjunction with that, I'll have one last thing before we get off of this topic. What can we do? Relative to sponsoring a walk, what is okay to do relative to that property and when?
Right. So not just yet, not until we own it. So mid-December, right now, December 16th is our target date to purchase. We don't have the purchase and sales agreement at the moment, but we should be planning and be thinking about whatever series of walks or talks we want to do and are going to make sense.
So you will own it as of what, mid-December approximately?
Right now, our offer said that we would buy it by December 16th, with those contingencies. One being that the CPC committee was going to vote to move forward on putting an article on the town warrant in the spring. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
When's the next CPC meeting?
When this gets submitted, I'm gonna call Sanda because if nothing, because she asked us all, well, nothing's been submitted, so let's not have a meeting till January. And at the time, I
That's what I
thought,
was wondering.
that's okay, because then, we'll just float till then, because I knew we all know this would take some time. But now that's why we're gonna get it in there right away and then submit and then schedule and then take it from there, you think? So ASAP, but not to push you, Cynthia, because basically the bones are there. That could almost go in as is. I'm just a tweaker. So
yeah, no. Happy to tweak and make it the best application possible. And like I said, I'll have time. I expect to have time tomorrow evening.
Oh no, it's
So I haven't seen the application, Cynthia. So I just have a suggestion to you guys, you, Steph and Susan. As I don't know what is already in the application or what needs to be in the application, but I would, well, if we can keep it simple as far as, pretty much the wording of the motion, that would be great. But I suspect that it's going to get down possibly in discussion into some nitty gritty things, and being able to explain all the connections that we've gone through here in this meeting.
that was Mark's point.
I would suggest that you find a way to simplify that so that
for presentation,
when they're talking about it at the CPC, it will be easy for them to understand. Because I don't know everybody on the CPC, but I just would be afraid that if it got too confusing, they just wouldn't get it.
They wouldn't get it, but they'd still have to pass it because it meets the guidelines. But you're getting the CR point, yeah.
Well, I did my best to be as logical and thoughtful about the various questions that are asked, and I'll let me send it forth, and I'd be glad to take whatever comments and corrections people have, so that it's as good as possible. I mean, my husband actually sits on the CPC in Templeton, and he urged me to actually say even less than what I did say. So,
well, that's kind of what I was thinking. If we can keep it simple, right?
Right. So like the things that Susan suggested are going to add more detail, more stuff. So, and it's all relevant and important.
Well, yeah, but that's maybe more for selling it to the town than getting the application.
Oh, maybe the application could be simplified. But
yeah,
so it's good. It's very good as is. But you have to read it.
I just I haven't, like I said, I haven't read it, but to me, the simpler and easier you can make it to understand. I mean, we're all rookies at this, Cynthia. So I've never seen a CPC application. I have no idea what all goes into it, but. My sense is that, Susan and Stephanie need to be able to answer questions if they get asked about it, but the more of the weeds you put into it, the more questions you're going to get and maybe confuse people. So that's just my 2 cents worth.
No, it's a good point.
Well, let me make a few more modifications and send it out, and then you tell me if it's too detailed or can be clarified in other ways.
Well, we'll be asking Mark that. Right, Mark?
Well, I don't know. I don't have much experience with CPC committees, but it seems like it's a pretty cut and dried process. I mean, as you keep referencing, as long as it meets the guidelines, it should pass through. I
That's
mean,
correct.
the committee is not the major
No.
roadblock. The town meeting is the major roadblock.
Correct. And before we let Cynthia go, not to put you on the spot, and I want to be sure I'm following protocol here. When we talked before to put our money where our mouth is to help with the appraisal, are we going to spend some time talking about that later, folks? So, and then get back to Cynthia as to, assuming if it gets approved, which I hope it will be, we would just need an invoice of some sort to move. How time sensitive is that for you? Do we need to hop on it or?
No, but I can do that as well.
Well, just be keeping it in mind because we're going to be submitting for some other things. And it's
Okay.
just, I thought, well, you know, but we haven't had a chance to discuss it because this is our first meeting since the subcommittee has worked
Right.
with you. So,
Right. So, I mean, I can draft up an invoice and then you can tell me if I didn't include it, if I somehow need to reference it differently, but I can do that.
it's just part of the process. And the more that gets done up front, then the quicker it can be once it gets to expedite it. So, but we haven't had a chance to discuss it as a whole committee. So, all righty, just tuck it away.
Right.
It's one more thing to do.
Yep. No, that's all good. All good.
Okay. Oh, Bob disappeared. No, I think he's
look
really
back.
gone.
So, so I'll redraft this stuff and then I'll send it to you, Steph and Susan,
Okay, sounds good, right,
Great.
Steph?
for distribution. Anything else that you need me or want me to say before I go? Because I know you guys have other business.
Happy Halloween.
No.
Okay. Well, very good. Thank you so much.
Okay, all
Thanks,
right.
Cynthia.
Be in touch. Thank you.
We just got bigger.
Yeah.
All right, does everybody have the agenda in front of them?
Yes.
The new one. All right.
Next, map and kiosk. It looks like that's on there. Old business. Oh no, the minutes. We have to
Yeah.
look at the minutes, right? Did everybody look at the minutes of the previous meeting?
So Rick, you got my monthly correction on Tim Culkeen?
Yes. Already made it.
Okay.
And Todd and Stephanie weighed in and said they look fine. So I haven't heard from Susan or Bob, but no news is good news, I guess.
You all set on the minutes?
Unless you have something you want to
Nope,
add.
I'm all set.
Move that we accept the minutes as submitted by Rick with the corrections noted.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Well, actually, since this is a webinar thing, do I hear any oppositions? Hearing none, we'll accept them without going through an individual roll call. Old business, let's see. Treasurer's report.
Treasurer's report? As in
Yeah.
treasures? Okay, I have to put my hat on then. I'm a pirate. Did you get it? Treasures? I'm a treasure. I know. I'm
All
That
right.
must have been my mistake.
That's enough picking on Bob.
Hey, guys, I have to live here.
I like the hat. You might as well keep it on.
Well, anyway, okay. The treasurer's report. I did send it out. People had a chance to glance it over when we were going to have the meeting 2 meetings ago. Yes. Does anybody have it handy anymore or want me to review it? The 3 accounts, of course, are the open space expense donations. That's $477. The rider account is $5,691 exclusively for Mount Jeff. And then we have this Hubbardston preservation, which basically is, in my mind, hay monies. And I thought we had $6,651 in it, and then come to talk with Kelly. we discovered that there was another Hubbardston Preservation account and that she and Ryan combined them.
They don't know who Kelly is necessarily.
Oh, Kelly Pomprian, the town accountant. Is everybody familiar with that name? Sorry about that. And so if those two numbers are correct, and I'm pretty sure the 6,000 is, and she came up with a 5,334 from the quote, other Hubbardston Preservation,
Huh.
it would be around almost $12,000. But we're not sure if that includes 2020 deposits in January, February, March from the lanes of 1,000, 745, and 1427. So there's still some stuff we're not, I know it's more than 6,000. I don't know that it's much more than 10, but I think it's healthy.
Oh, you
Is-
know, it's 1198.
Well,
Well,
not
they-
sure, because they may have that transfer that Mark helped me, he walked me through that. Remember when we had to get it straightened out because we didn't know where the hay money was? So there's some question as to whether that got counted twice. I did ask Kelly to get back to me and she did not. So no more Miss Nice Guy. I'm going to have to be kind of real witch to get what I need because I don't have access to it. Don't seem.
I was just going to ask you if you had a witch's hat.
Yeah, no, not on me. But anyway, so that's what we have. And I think I'm feeling pretty good about it because this hay.
Well, I'm trying to recall with, I know there was two accounts, and
Of preservation, yes. And they've been
like funds for
combined.
Hubbardston Preservation and Hubbardston Preservation Fund.
They've been combined.
What were the two?
It's a total mystery to us, Bob. We didn't know about this second Hubbardston Preservation account previously.
I'd seen it in town reports, but I thought, well, maybe that's some special group or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
we
all
have
in the town reports. It's just
we have no idea what it is, but we'll take the money if they want to roll it into
Oh,
our account.
right. Well, you know
Yeah.
what?
Don't ask too many
Ryan,
questions.
it's
All right.
already been rolled. It's already been rolled into it.
Yes.
There is no longer two Hubbardston
Right.
Preservation.
All right, I'll take an action just to clarify that with Jesse, and whatever the clarification is, we'll have no other.
it's ancient history, but it's more
It's done,
recent
Bob.
history. We will track it down so
Okay.
we know where these monies are.
Okay,
But we know for sure that the 6 is good and there's certainly more from the other, but I'm not sure if the amount is 10, 11, or 12.
Yep.
It will be though soon.
the only point of clarification is, who do you have to go to access that?
The town accountant.
Rec. Parks and Rec.
Oh, for permission to use it, yes.
One go has to go through
That's the one.
Parks and Rec, right?
That's the one.
That's right.
The hay monies have to be approved by Sanda.
But if it's rolled into one, that doesn't mean that whole 11,000 has to get approved by Parks and Rec?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I have a little concern with. So and it's a minor concern because there's never been an issue there,
Right.
but it's just a matter of who authorizes it. All right,
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Before
Any
we
other-
leave it,
Any other comments? We don't need an acceptance on this. Any other comments on that?
well, I
Treasurer?
just want to throw in my recommendations. Do you want to talk about how we want to pay the bills or save that for later?
Later.
Okay. Well,
As
we
they
do have the money to cover the bills that we have so far. So, all right, we'll talk about it later.
Let's see. I had in here an old business, so we'll move into old business. The map and kiosk, those are in great shape. And posted up there, and kudos to Mark and Rick and Susan for the work that was done up there. Susan didn't probably do too much with the kiosk, but she certainly painted that bench over there, and that looks great. And
Charlie Clark Blue.
Yeah, looks good.
so I think that's all we need to do is comment on that. I sent around, and it's in the agenda, that webinar link on climate change from Joy Rio. And if you go there, what I discovered a month or so ago was that link gets you to all of the webinars, and some of them, there was one on bees, and one by Ralph Baker, the one by John Scanlon, etc. They're all concatenated, so you can just go from one to the other if you want to see any of those things that were put on by that Joy Rio organization on mitigating climate change through forests. The Malone Road, probably maybe a little bit of open business, but I have it under old business. The things are looking really good up there. A lot of the brush hog work is done. Mark didn't like the butchered effect because it wasn't very amenable to putting the herbicide on a mangled stem. So he went through and clipped things off very neatly so we could feed that speckled alder the appropriate herbicide that it was needed. So that's all cleared up. We have brush hog, the major half of it. We're going to go back and do the other half of it. But as we move forward to that, so this is kind of a combination old business and new business, but we'll cover Malone Road in one here. Just my thoughts on moving forward, that maybe we could maintain that a little bit more and have expand the wildflower aspect of things, but in islands. Instead of having that whole large meadow grow up to the state that it did, which was quite a bit of work to do in that, to maybe clean that up. And I don't know, here's a crude vision that maybe just will prompt a little bit of discussion. I don't want to solve that, but just a little bit of discussion about maybe where we want to think, and have a couple people think more and propose something at a future meeting. But if you had some sort of a center area, so you could walk through that, but then have segmented areas that were allowed to grow up to support pollination and be wild or whatnot, and maybe clearing out underneath that large maple tree and stuff. I don't know. Anybody got any thoughts on an extended expansion of how we want to utilize or augment what's up there? No?
Well, I'd love to see that maple tree uncovered and cleaned up, and have an area around it that people could sit, have a picnic. It's that kind of thing. It looks great when the field's cut.
Yeah. I support the pollination aspect of things 100%, but maybe just have more sections of it and have, I know I spoke to Mark about it. Mark, you got any comments on that?
Not in particular. I'm gonna take some steps, I think, probably this week to beat back some of that bittersweet around the maple. But in terms of the broader strategy of what to do with the field, I don't have any grand plans at this point. But
Susan, you got any thoughts? Is this something that's maybe just on a back burner, or is it something that we want to think about relative to?
I was very pleased with the way the black-eyed Susans seeded and so forth in this smaller area. I think whatever we would do for a bigger plan, we need to keep the KISS method in mind, keep it simple, silly, because we get too, if we get, or there's other words you can use there.
Keep it simple, Susan?
No, keep it simple, stupid. But to me, I guess I'm so excited about cleaning the other thing up at Mount Jeff. I've sort of said, okay, Malone, you look really great. I'm sort of like, moving on, but actually, when we went to Audubon to see that big expanse, it wasn't very pretty, that pollinating.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, I would almost rather see smaller clusters of color, but so that when people are maintaining it, it's not fussy, because that can be annoying.
All right.
Just that's where I think I'm happy with where the butterfly. Oh, and by the way, there was a lovely article about the Girl Scouts and their silver award at the Malone Meadow. So I will get that out to everybody. It was very nice.
To see
So,
it.
and I appreciate that everybody showed up for their silver thing. And Todd, we know you had a very important thing, so you were excused.
So Bob, I guess my 2 cents worth maybe is to, at least for now, put it on the back burner because we got so many other things going
Okay.
on. But if you mentioned you're going to be doing some more brush cutting over there,
Yeah.
well, I mean, that might be the time.
Well, we only did one. We got the main section done, but there's the section over around the wildflower area that didn't get done.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
where the foundation is.
Yeah, we'd like to definitely get that done
Yeah.
because it'd be really out of control if we didn't do it soon. So
Well, what I was going to say is if you are going to have a tractor over again, that would be the time to maybe see if we could move some of those rocks around the maple then at the same time.
well, I got the tool for that would be the bigger tractor with the backhoe and the thumb and stuff like that. They could pick those rocks up like crazy. To neaten that up, at least so it could get mowed around there. Right now that would Steph likes to hit rocks with the brush hog, but there'd be a real challenge there.
And then the other thing,
There's a lot of rocks around that maple tree.
the other thing is that we've been talking about the wet area on the east side of the trail there around that field and doing something about that. I don't know if we're still thinking about doing that or where that's.
What's that? What's that? Where are you talking?
On the west side of that field where it's really wet, you had talked about putting some geotextile in there and let it for grass to grow through and try to mitigate some.
Oh, on the far side. Yeah, I think let's table that for another thing because there needs to be a proposal. And I haven't given up on that, but
I mean, it's on the project list, but
let's just leave it there on the project list until it gets to a state where it can be coherently discussed. And I got on the agenda, which I didn't update, the log photography. Well, obviously the bench is done and that's out at on the overlook. And that last work, how'd you get down to that last thing? Did you go right straight over the edge, Mark, to that one that tree in the middle you got out of there? That was great.
That tree was up top.
You got that from the up top?
Yeah, well, that's where it was growing.
Oh, no, I thought it was down I thought it was down the cliff, like 10 or 15 feet.
You can actually see the stump on the ground in the second photo.
All right.
That is
All right.
stump today, yeah. Fresh stump.
But at any rate, that was great. You knocked that out of there because that was you could see dramatically in the 2 photos you took what the improvement was. So that was a great day up there between mowing and speckled alder removal and herbicide, et cetera, et cetera. So.
And bravo to Todd. I love the bench. It's situated perfectly. I could get poetic. It's organic. It emerges out of the coal.
No, it's not.
Well,
It's not organic anymore.
That's true.
All right.
Linseed oil is organic.
So thank you.
Crankcase oil.
Be quiet.
Oh, I forgot about the crankcase oil.
Yeah. Well,
That's what I was getting at.
That's organic too. The screws
All right,
are organic.
let's move off into the new business category. Dollars for the Keystone Appraisal. First, I'd introduce that topic by just saying that East Quabbin is doing a great job. Cynthia driving that effort specifically.
You mean Fieldstone
Yeah, he
appraisal?
means Fieldstone.
Fieldstone.
Yeah. okay.
Oh yeah, not Keystone. We don't need to. We don't need to do any appraisal relative to Paul there
Okay.
for the Keystone appraisal. Yeah, what they've done stepping forward to push that Fieldstone project is great, and stepping out on a limb to purchase it. I mean, because if things fall through this, they still own that property. It talked about. So the topic for discussion here would be if and how much we would want to support that. The appraisal was in the range of about $4,500 that it cost East Quabbin to get the appraisal done, and whether or not we want to fund a portion of that. North County, I think, contributed. So there's only 3 contributors to that: North County, East Quabbin, and potentially us. So I'll just open it up to comments from the people in attendance here.
Seems
I
reasonable.
think we should contribute
Are we having a Fieldstone discussion?
on the appraisal.
Yeah.
Oh, but I mean, he's talking about
Just the appraisal portion.
paying open space themselves, paying some money towards the appraisal.
So I've opened it up for anybody to make any comments, whether one, we should, and then the overall appraisal was roughly cost $4,500, and if we want to contribute to it, and how much.
Well, I guess in addition to my just simple comment that I think we should contribute is that and I know Susan has some information on it, but the amount of money in the Hubbardson combined Hubbardson Preservation Fund is just under 12,000, and as a committee we spend next to nothing for the work that we do. And I think that it's a worthy effort to, that, as you mentioned, Bob, the Eastern Quabbin Land Trust has gone all in on this. And I think it would be a good sign that we're supporting them if we did make a contribution, and I think the town can afford it.
Yeah, well, it's not. Well, it's sort of the town. We're a town committee.
Well, we have to go to the Hubbardson Preservation Fund. That's town money. We don't have enough funds in our own.
No. That's just it with those accounts. We don't have to go to a town meeting.
Oh, we don't have to do a meeting, but Santa has to approve
I'm
it.
not talking about a town meeting. I'm just saying that we don't have money and we have $477 in our expense fund. Right?
Yes, yes.
So in order to,
But we don't have to go to a town meeting. We just have
I
to.
just said that it's town money.
Oh, okay.
Wisely. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I'm saying that we've spent very little town money, and I think this is a worthy cause to show our support.
Oh, okay.
East Quabbin Land Trust, and given that there's $12,000 in that fund, which we've,
It's a surprise, kind of. So
it is what it is. So
yeah,
well, that's my comment.
originally the thought was maybe the appraisal might be around between 5 and 6. And originally somebody said, well, maybe North Quabbin would contribute. I was thinking 2, and that would be, it would cover a decent amount. We put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah.
Kind of say, well, oh, okay, now it's time to step up. And interestingly enough, the timing on the funds couldn't be more perfect. Because if we only had $6,000 period, I would think, oh, that's a third of that. But now I feel like we could do it in good conscience. That's just me.
We don't have the funds, the Hubbardson. funds.
Well, if there's three players, why don't we just divide it by three and go $1,500?
I'm not sure North Quabbin,
That was at one point, Jassy had said
Yeah.
something about it,
No, but he's
then-
got DCR as a buyer, so DCR.
I'm inclined to go along with Mark's comment. That's my stance on it. If we contribute something in the $1,500 range, I think East Quabbin would be happy with that. And as far as I know, and it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference because it's a matter of what we want to contribute, but I believe the effort was divided three ways, but I'm not 100% sure of that, so I can't state that fact. But I think if East Quabbin were refunded something in the range of $1,500, I think they would be happy with that. But that's my rough take.
And what did she say it was, 4,500, was it, or
Yeah.
5?
It was in that $4,500 to $5,000 range. So it's roughly $1,500, $1,600 is a third of the expense.
Okay, does somebody want to do we need to discuss it more, or what time is
Any
it?
other comments or discussion? Anybody else want to comment on that? Then somebody could make a motion relative to what we want to contribute, and then we'll go from there.
I'll move to contribute $1,600.
16?
16?
1,600. Do I hear a second?
second,
Comments?
I think it's a good cause. And we have the funds without being irresponsible. Which is
Right.
nice.
Any other comments? This is a relatively significant amount of money. Then I'll call for a vote on this by roll call. Steph,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes,
Rick,
yes.
and Bob's a yes, so that makes it unanimous. So we're done with that. Now, let's move on to some exciting stuff at Mount Jeff, potentially. Steph and I had the opportunity to see that. Well, let's see. Let's lay a little groundwork here. Several of us have endured hailstorms, and what was the name of the storm?
Greco, I forget.
Derecho.
Derecho, that's it.
That was a specific type of storm, like a tornado and a hurricane. It was a Derecho, which has characteristics with that storm met, and we saw it. Took an hour to get home because I helped the people clear roads on Williamsville and several places, etc. And we endured hailstone as we were leaving the field. But the topic, which we had discussed previous to that, was doing some clearing around the foundation, doing some clearing around the big beech tree, doing some clearing at Jassy's Meadow, which is on the project list. And through a roundabout way, we became aware of a machine and a resource called a forest mulcher. And Mark, Steph, and I, in a completely independent thing, associated with some trails associated with Henry David Thoreau in Concord, met a person named the name of Robert Hype, who has a forest mulcher. And then through maybe some light dawns on Marblehead type of things, it's like maybe we could use that guy up here at Mount Jeff to both clear around the foundation, clear around the beech tree, and do Jassy's Meadow and get it done in a very abbreviated time frame, like within a day or two. to complete the little story on that, I had contacted Robert actually today, and we had to go help Steph's daughter move in Lancaster, and Robert Hype had his machine in Sterling and had it in full-fledged motion on areas that were being cleared. And I loaded pictures and video onto the website, and I gave the address for where work was being done in Sterling, and they'll still be doing work there tomorrow, I'm sure. So if anybody wants to see the machine in action, other than the video that I took and the pictures that I took, you could drive by there and see it in action.
That Clearview Farm up on the hill there, or
Yeah,
Clearview?
I
No,
don't
not
know.
Clearview. It was High.
Oh, okay.
High Crest. It was High Crest Farm is right up there, but it was some an old apple orchard that they were just
Where they were doing the work. Where they were doing the work was an old apple orchard. So there were trees and growth. The old apple trees were certainly of the order of magnitude, diameter-wise, and more of what's down in Jassie's Meadow, as well as some of the trees around the foundation. The video, and I don't know how many people had a chance to look at it. When they were engaging large trees, the machine is a super, who makes the skid steer, the super skid steer machine, kind of on steroids. And it's a tracked machine, but the machine really flies around. And most tracked machines that I think of an excavator. This thing, it's tracked, a Bobcat type machine. It's like a Bobcat on steroids. It lifts the Fecon head. The Fecon Fecon's a company that makes forest mulcher heads from relatively small, and this is in the relatively small category, to monstrous size that go on the big of the head of essentially a large front end loader. But this would pick the head up and go right down the edge of a tree and chew it up on its way down, and then eat into the debris of whatever is out there. From looking at what I saw, I have no reservations about that it could handle the tasks that we have in question. And then relative to chewing stuff up, it takes things down, and just watching this thing in operation, and in the video that I took, you can see it when it back drags things, if you would. The head is right down at turf level, and you can see a combination of debris and dirt flying out. Now, that being said, it doesn't leave a fine granular mulch behind. It leaves the best description that I've got, if people have seen stump grindings, it leaves stump grindings behind. And then in some cases, there's longer pieces that might be a couple feet long, 2 or 3 feet long, of shreds.
like kindling.
So there'd be some cleanup work to be done. So it doesn't leave like a rototilled surface behind. It leaves stump grindings behind. So what Mark, myself, and Rick was a little bit of that. We're thinking about using this type of a device to clear around the foundation, clear around the birch tree, and do Jassie's Meadow. So I'll open it up for discussion after that relative to whether we want to pursue it. I'll finish that up with a comment on approximate cost. The it's via email that I have got from Robert Hype, and this was related to more over at the Concord facility, but it would certainly be pertinent to what we want to do. He has a daily cost. He didn't give me his hourly cost. I've got three numbers from him on an hourly rate of 1,700. I mean, a daily rate of 1,700, 1,600, and 1,450. A recent email associated with if he did work over in Concord that he could probably drop his rate to 1,450. So my guess is we could get him for somewhere in the $1,500 a day range, and he estimated the work for the three areas that I just mentioned: the foundation, the beech tree, and Jassie's Meadow, at approximately a day and a half. And so my thinking was, if we're gonna get him up there for a day and a half, instead of getting him for an hourly rate, which would probably be in the, if his daily rate is in the $1,500 to $1,600 range, his hourly rate is probably in the $250 to $300 an hour range. So my thought was to get him for 2 days. So Mark, I know you were part of that. You got comments?
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing what his ultimate production rate really is, but I'm hopeful that the 2 days would allow him to finish the area around the foundation and Jassie's Meadow. I would be very surprised if he makes it up to the edge of Gates Hill Field. But that's all right with me anyway. I think we need to give some thought as to, once you move on to Gates Hill, there's a lot of heavy duty bittersweet, and it's all got really highly developed seed pods at this point.
Really?
I'm not sure I really want to spew that stuff all around.
Yeah.
There's some as well around the foundation, but not quite as much as up on the field edge. But I would view this as sort of a proof of concept type thing. And if we're happy with how it worked out, then we would give some thought as to doing across the street.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of thing that we're according to the hay management plan, we're supposed to be trying to maintain that as a reasonably open meadow, and of course it hasn't been touched in God knows how long ever.
So you're thinking phases, like try this as a phase one?
Yeah, I'm seeing this as a phase one and see how we like it.
Along those lines, Mark, are you thinking? Do you think we should hire him for 2 days and then do as much as we can?
Yeah, I think so.
And even up at on Gates Hill, if he's got a few hours left in the day to finish up the 2-day contract, if you would, there are certainly stretches that don't engage bittersweet, right?
Yeah.
So if he's got a couple hours left, particularly on the street side, if you would, I forget what geographic wise what it is, but on the street side, there's not much bittersweet on the street side, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
The east side, yeah.
So that'd be the east side, I guess. So at any rate, so what's from looking, and I tried to summarize what I expected to be left behind, because Steph and I were literally walking around through. If anybody drives by there, they'll see the machine in operation probably tomorrow if you want to see it in operation. Besides the video that I took, it'll look pretty much like the video that I took. Actually, it'll look very much like the video.
Identical.
Because
Hopefully
that
it
was
looks like
considered
Bender goes in the video that I took. We walked out, he had an area that was a big area, several acres that were all done. And if you walk through it, it ranged from really chewed up like wood chips to sections where, like I said, it was much more like stump grindings. And for people that don't know what stump grindings are, they're much more shredded pieces versus chips that you get from running some wood through a wood chipper. So there'd be some cleanup of picking up bigger shreds, etc. And then I'm not sure exactly how we would, I don't have a vision of how we would finish that off. And maybe Mark's got a couple thoughts after that, other than continue to run brush hogs over it and keep it mowed down till it rotted and we got grass coming up through it. But
So Mark, I got a question. Are you skeptical that he won't be able to get those 3 areas you showed him that Bob mentioned? He won't be able to get those done in 2 days? Or do you
A
think
day and a half, I thought.
Yeah, he gave us a day and a half estimate on the area around the foundation and Jesse's Meadow.
But you said that you'd be surprised if he.
I'm a little skeptical on that. I think it might take him a full 2 days just to do those areas, but I don't know. Remains to be seen.
Well, so Bob, if we were to go forward with him, could you put it in terms of those are the areas that have to be done, and if it happens to take longer than 2 days, then
yeah, that's how I read what he estimated a day and a half to do those areas. So we would ask him, the contract would be for doing those 3 areas.
Period for whatever the price turned out to be for 2 days.
Yeah, and that would be
A day and a half.
You're not getting
all
my
right.
point. My point is, if it turned out he couldn't finish it in 2 days, we don't want to pay another half a day.
no, and that's the way I would work it out with him. If he thinks I have pretty good confidence in him. I mean, if you looked at the work that he's doing over there in Sterling, that's nasty stuff, and so he's got. We did manage. We walked hurriedly as Mark led the tour. We had before the Dureco hit. Before the Dureco hit, we were cruising through that area, but we did get a very good observation of all 3 areas. He saw the size of the trees that had to come down in Jesse's Meadow, and those are certainly bigger than what they were a few years ago when Steph and I walked through there. And there's a lot of small birch and stuff like that. But looking at what he's got in that apple orchard, the trees weren't quite as big as the birch trees, but it was much, much more dense what he was eating through over in Sterling. I mean, it was a jungle, and underneath the jungle were old apple trees. So, and old apple trees have some substantial branches and trunks and bases to them. So,
yeah, I do want to make one comment, which I've made before, and I think Steph has made before as well. If we're talking about clearing vegetation right to the edge of the old foundation, that's a serious drop, and we have to be prepared to put some kind of barrier there.
Yeah, definitely, immediately, because something, even if it was temporary, right? Because
we would have to be pretty.
Something ready to go.
At a minimum, a sign to let people know there's a big drop.
That and a cup of coffee, a quarter will buy a cup of coffee, or however it goes. But
some electric fencing we could put.
Yeah, that might work.
We've got a good portable charger that puts out 10,000 volts. That would get somebody's attention.
They just steal it, Bob.
So then that means that we'd have to to set aside some money for fencing.
Yeah,
It's a big area though, that drop. It's, just behind the bench there, right?
Well, it's actually the other side of the foundation
Yeah.
behind the bench.
Yeah, on the other side, like by the tree side. So I don't know. I mean, if we all volunteer time to put it up, it would just be the cost of the supplies.
What do you think would be an appropriate fence, Mark?
Chain link.
I don't
appraisal.
know. I mean, aesthetic wise, if you get it really cleared out, it'd be nice to have kind of a split rail type of thing.
That's what's there, kind of. isn't
But-
it?
Well,
It's falling down.
have
but-
you guys been to other conservation areas where there's foundations that are not fenced in? Or is it because this one's so much right at the entrance? Like I'm thinking when we go over to Brooks Woodland and we park right at the parking lot, there's a big, huge foundation. It's not fenced. I'm not saying that we don't have to fence it, but
I don't know.
maybe if we make some sort of an entrance slant so people can walk down into it. Or I don't know.
Cave it in.
I mean,
no, we don't want to do
fencing
that.
it is a good idea just because little kids will run and they may not know, but something maybe we could look into to see
Well,
what.
instead of solving
be
this,
done.
who wants to look into it? I'll look into it.
I can help look into it. We'll have to drive around to a whole bunch of places that have foundations.
No, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm thinking. In fact, I know where I've seen something like this, and it's a combination of two different things. It's at what's the mountain over here?
Oh, Calvin Swan and.
No, the skiing area.
Massachusetts.
Wachusett, there you go, Durr. They have a pond there, and to keep little kids, they have a combination of split rail, and then up to so the aesthetics are not disrupted significantly. They have like 18 inches of welded wire that's stapled to the back side of that fencing.
Yeah.
And Todd, I can see, is shaking his head. And because we were over there this fall, we hiked up and down there with Steph's kids. And then we ended up at the pond area. And the dogs were thirsty, and I was trying to find a place to go down to that pond, and I couldn't find one. So it would make it so that a 2 or 3 year old could not readily just sneak through easily. Yet it had the aesthetics of a 3-rail split rail fence, something like that.
I mean, the alternative is that we just leave, we clear out a bunch of that crap back there, but still leave a buffer strip.
Oh no, I'd like to. I think it looks pretty if we cleared it all out. I mean, it might cost us a little more to put up a fence, but it is.
All right. Well, I'll.
Between the land trust and the trustees and the Audubon, I mean, they must have other properties where they've got foundations, old foundations on the property.
Yeah.
You might be able to check with them and see what they do, and also, what the liability issues are, if any.
Well, that's a great idea. Yeah, check with Jassy and Cynthia.
You ever seen anything like that, Mark?
Nothing springs to mind, but yeah, I'm sure they must be out there.
Did they do anything over at Berry Falls Dam? I haven't been over there in so long. I just can't remember anything. But there's some pretty steep areas over there.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Well, here's my. We're not going to solve this right now. Let's each of us, and I'll throw something together. I'll find out some costs for split rail and the welded wire fencing. That'd be nothing, but the split rail would cost something. And we've got the appropriate tools for doing the post holes. So that's not an issue. So it's mostly the cost of the materials to do that. I'll look into that to see what that would cost. And it wouldn't take it all. So you can walk over there and see how much length we need. Like on the lower side, you can actually walk in there. So there's only a few places, and my guess is might be 50, 60 feet of places where there's enough of a drop that would warrant protection. And
Yeah,
regardless,
it's mostly
regardless,
just
go ahead, Mark.
just the north side.
Yeah. So,
primarily.
and regardless of what other people are doing, if this is us, I mean, if a 3-year-old can climb over the edge and drop 8 feet to have an 8-foot fall, that's not good. So I don't care what other people do. We want to do what we think. We want to do what we think is safe, and we want young families to go up there. So you don't want to have it leave it. So a 3-year-old can easily get to a point and drop into a significant hole. So I think we should look at what the cost of that would be. And we do have some time to do that. I talked to Robert today, obviously in conjunction with viewing what was going on. And I also asked him what his availability was. And he is busy for like the next 2 to 3 weeks. So the earliest he could get in there would be, let's see, where are we? Would be the mid-November, something like that. The mid-November, 2nd to 3rd week of November.
Well,
So
will we be having a meeting in between though? I mean, because if you want to move ahead with that, we would need to decide it now then, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he won't require, just from doing it, he won't require a deposit. He just would agree to a verbal confirmation that we'd like him to come in there. So you don't need any formal document or something like that. So it's a matter of if the committee wants to spend
2250 or 3, depending on if it's a
yeah,
half
and
day.
if you had some fencing in, just off the top of my head, you might throw $1,000 in for fencing. So
Really? Wow.
yeah, that's just right off the top of my head. I know that fencing isn't cheap, and if it's probably I don't know, $30 for a 10-foot section, $30 to $40 a 10-foot section. And if there's 50, 60 feet, 30 times 5 or 6 sections, probably $500 would be what you'd need for fencing. But just without investigating it further, it'd be 30. You're starting off at approximately 3,500. I mean, 3,000 for the forest mulching aspect of it, and another $500-600 for some fencing. If it's less than that, that's fine. But that's ballpark. We don't. It's a matter of whether we want to say, let's go ahead and do this.
Do we need to get approval from Mount Jeff or Concom or anybody else?
Question.
That's a worthy question.
Because is that technically Mount Jeff? So the rider money, some of that could come out of that, couldn't it?
Yeah, but it's not, I'm asking about whose permission do we need?
Yeah, we have to go to Concom for that,
Do we?
probably.
I think it's substantial enough that we really have to ask ourselves whether we need to take it to Concom.
I could do that.
I mean, there's no hard and fast requirement.
But it's a courtesy, don't you think?
But they are the we're sort of the agents. Facilitating work, but they have ultimate responsibility for the property.
Mm.
And how about anything about CR that the DCR holds that would require us to go to them for permission for maintenance like that?
Well, no, but there is an interesting provision in the CR. It's actually a WPR because it's with water supply. Essentially, it's a CR. Anyway, there's an interesting stipulation in there that says if an area goes to early successional growth, which is all the birch and such that you find in
Jesse's
Jesse's Meadow, you are not allowed to revert it back to a field.
Ugh.
Wow.
And I was thinking about that.
Ah.
And it kind of depends on how you interpret field. We're not talking about trying to put Jesse's Meadow into production as a hay field.
It's a meadow.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was coming down on it. But
Antics, yeah.
Not field, it's a meadow.
it is a gray zone.
Huh.
Well, do
Well,
we?
we didn't know about that.
Well,
Until
what's
Mark
the
told
intent
us.
of that requirement? The intent is to promote reforestation, is it not?
Yeah.
So there won't be a meadow there. We want to let the trees grow up because if we don't do it soon, it will be a forest, right?
Could it be a silvo pasture?
But at the same time, Todd, it does allow for forest management and timber cuts.
Uh-huh.
So
there's our loophole. Is that what you're saying?
So
Well,
it's not to clear a meadow, but it wouldn't.
what I'm saying is that the intent is not necessarily to bring this to old growth forest. No touch zone.
Yeah.
There's room for different forest management philosophies, including for different habitats and things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm envisioning a meadow where we have like maybe a few little paths down in there, or is it just short grass with picnic tables, just a gathering area for people that come to Mount Jeff? They can walk down in there and gather. What is a meadow defined in your minds?
Well, Mark commented too that some of the trees are getting to be more substantial. So, and it sounded like a good idea when we walked it with Robert Height, albeit abbreviated, that there are some trees that were maybe in the 5-6 inch diameter category, and that we would leave some of the bigger trees because it'd be nice to have some shade down there.
Yeah,
So-
a few. Maybe in a grove, sort of.
No, but my like in a meadow. Does this mean it's going to be long grass like at Malone Road that we just cut once a year and you can just walk by and see long grass, or is this an area where it's cut down a little bit shorter and you can play in there, where there's a picnic table and people can run around?
Well, my thoughts were that this didn't have to be groomed like a lawn,
No,
but it would be grass that may be 4 or 5 inches in height and stuff like that, where
So
people
someone's
could
gonna mow
walk
that.
down and have a picnic and walk through there. Yeah.
what were you guys thinking? Any comments?
Well, I think that would be, a good use of it if you're going to let it go to long grass like over at Malone, then there's no point in doing any of it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Mark? I can see you thinking.
So you're not, Rick, you're not, your thoughts on Jesse's Meadow are not,
The same as Stephanie's. The same as what Stephanie was talking about.
so like a close cut
Yeah.
grassy area?
Yep.
Who's going to do that then
Yeah.
regularly? To ask DPW or somebody, that's above
Yeah,
and
that's not
beyond.
gonna-
They do enough, don't you think? They do a great job at Malone, though, don't you think? On the main pathways.
Yeah, I don't think they'd go down there.
Could they get their equipment in there?
Yeah, that's another thing.
Well, yeah, we could provide somehow a way to get the equipment in there.
No,
That
because
would-
you can get the equipment and then you get 4-wheelers anywhere.
No. We could control that somehow. Whether you put up a short section of chain and rocks or something, but
Well,
something to get them.
I guess what is what is defined as a meadow?
What function do you want that to have, or what's the objective then?
Well, if people can't easily access it and go through it, in my opinion, sit and enjoy it, and maybe have kids run around down there or something. Why are we going to do it? I mean, it's got to be.
Well, a meadow could be a place for certain
Type of
birds.
species.
Yeah. So I guess what's our point is sort of reopening. I don't know.
My point, it would be for people, but
Yeah. I think we've, my thought at this point is that we have got enough complications that we've just exposed here that we are not looking at this fall project. We're looking at a next spring project, if anything.
I want to do it now.
does someone want to do it
Are
now?
you talking just the meadow or around the big tree?
Oh no. There's 3 areas, and let's not get that confused. There's
Okay.
the foundation, there's the beech tree, and then there's the meadow area down below. So we're talking about the meadow down below right now.
And it sounds like we're not sure what we.
Well, even if we're talking about the foundation, we've got the issues like, do we need to approach the Concom? Do we need to make provisions for fencing?
We could do it.
If we're just cutting down, overgrowth of brush there, Mark, is that something that we would really need to talk to Concom about?
I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's not a definite requirement, but a project like this is certainly going to attract a lot of attention. People are not going to miss this.
We did this before, maybe like, I don't know, 8 years ago, where we brought our little hand brush hog and we had burn piles, and it was Open Space Committee that did it. We cleared up around the foundation. I mean, not as in depth as we're going to do now, but I don't remember going through Concom for that, but maybe.
No, we didn't go through Concom. It was cleared up quite a bit. I mean, we brush hogged all around that beech tree. That hasn't been done. That hasn't been done for 5 years, and so it's all grown back up. And we ate into the foundation area to some extent. Yeah, we cleaned up around there to some extent, but it hasn't been done for 5 or 6 years. And
8 years. Maybe 6.
but we didn't go. But I have no problem. I can take this to Concom. I wouldn't put that as a gate. And I don't think they're going to say anything. That's my own personal.
Well, I would certainly vouch for that.
So I would. I'll take it. I'll take the action to take this to Concom, and it's just a matter whether we want to get that this project started this year or not. I mean, I'm all
Or
for
in
it.
10.
What was that, Mark?
Whether we want to get it started this year or in 10 years, which would be the
Yeah.
time.
I mean, we've been talking about some of these things, and this would be a quick way to get something done, so.
I mean, I'd be for trying to get it done this year and see what hoops we have to jump through.
Yeah, just go. So Bob, are you saying you'd go to the next Concom whenever it is and
Yeah, because there's a month before you can get in there, so I can take it to
we
Concom.
could all zoom in if we wanted, right? Because they're doing Zoom, aren't they? Concom?
Yeah,
Yeah, they must
Yeah.
be.
So yeah, how about that?
If they're meeting at all.
If they're meeting
yeah,
at
they
all.
they had relatively sporadic meetings anyway, so.
Ah, okay.
All right,
I mean,
let's,
I think if you describe what we want to do in the right way, they
Clean it
wouldn't,
up.
yeah, they wouldn't probably think too much of it until it was too late.
Yeah, but at least you made the effort.
yeah, I could even talk to Rick. He's the chair of the Concom. I could just talk to Rick to see if he even thinks it needs to go to the whole committee, so.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll call Rick and report back. And maybe we could tentatively agree. So then let's, so from my perspective, what it amounts to is if we want to spend $3,500 approximately to get those 3 areas done.
And the fence. That includes. the
Yeah,
fence.
that includes some money for fencing.
Well, at this point, I'm dubious about going to Jesse's Meadow if we're not sure what the real purpose is and what the long-term maintenance arrangement is going to be.
So he could do it in a day and a half? Is that what you're thinking then, without the meadow? Or
I'm thinking about a day.
You could probably
Okay.
do it in a day without the meadow.
Excuse me?
How about the other side of the road?
I think you could do it in a day without the meadow.
Yes.
should we start with that and then think through what we want to do with the meadow and across the street for the spring, perhaps? Except we won't have any more hay money between now and then. So.
That's a good idea to
Well, that fits in along with Mac's thoughts about, this is sort of an experimental process, and let's see how this
Phases.
goes. That'd be a slightly smaller chunk, and I'm sure you could do those area. The bigger part of the project really was the meadow. There's there's a lot of trees to eat down there. They're small. Most of them were in the 3-inch diameter category. That would get taken down and chewed up down there. The area around the beech tree, I think, eat up in a heartbeat. And then there's a moderate amount of work around the foundation because there's bigger trees and stuff in there. So.
Well, then what about going for the one day and factor in the fence also, because one requires the other, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
calling that phase 1.
Want to do that? That sounds like a good start.
That's about how much money then? That's 1,500 plus 5 for the fence?
You're talking roughly, and
You?
I haven't got a firm thing from Robert Height, but I think we could do something. So I think grand total that we'd be looking at would be somewhere between 2,000 and 2,200, 2,300, somewhere in that range.
Somebody want to make a motion on that?
Sure, I will.
Say that again?
I move we devote somewhere between 2,000 and 2,300 to a one-day project, focusing on brush removal around the foundation, or around the foundation, and whatever other, and around beech tree.
Yeah, that's good. That's well phrased.
I second that.
Comments or discussions? I would just add my own comment on that, if I could, that would include protective fencing as necessary for the high
Right.
droppage areas on the foundation.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Take a vote?
All right. Any other discussion? Vote, Steph,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
and then that makes it a unanimous vote. All right, so I'll get in touch with Robert Height and just change the scope, just so we do the upper area and get a
If he doesn't
number.
have enough to do a whole day, he can start on the west side of Gates Field.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Let's see. There's a couple other things. It's 9:30 already. I know we're going to talk about some protocols, data registry, the Malone CR. I can comment on that. With the work of Mark and Jassy, we should cover that. The Malone Road registry fee to pay for Jassy. That's quick. That was
Actually,
120.
are we going to do the money stuff then? Because there are technically 4 things at this point.
There
And
were
I'm
4
ready
things.
to go. Because we have the Mount Jeff sign, and I'm recommending it come out of Ryder since it's Mount Jeff, and that's 8707, and that would go to Mark. And I know the protocol. I've talked with Kelly about how it works. And then hard copy, you'd need to sign, Bob, but I could get that to you tomorrow, okay, or whenever it's convenient. The second thing is the Malone sign.
Do that again. What do I have to sign? That's no problem.
The hard copy invoice, in addition to the form that's on the website.
Oh, okay.
But I've got all that stuff together. So
Okay.
the first one is Mount Jeff, and I'm suggesting take it out of the Ryder account since that's for Mount Jeff things. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so that's where I'd like to.
Mark's thinking. You got any problem with that, Mark? No?
That's fine.
And then the Malone sign money, I was thinking, which is $36.59 to take out of the Hubbardston expense, which is now $477. So it'll take a little chunk. The Malone CR for Jassy, which is 105, and I've got I actually bugged Bob for a clear copy on that one, Mark, because some of it, the receipt got cut off on the one you sent me. It just was hard to work with. Anyway, I'm suggesting that one come out of the Hubbardston expense also, so that we can keep the big expenses out of the hay money. And that means, remember, formally 2,000, no, not 2,000, what was it? 1,600 out of the Hubbardston preservation to go with that. So are we all okay with those 4 things? Do you want me to write it out and send it? Or in other words, sign out of Mount Jeff, Ryder, 8707 to Mark. Malone sign out of Hubbardston expense, 3659 to Mark. Malone CR to Jassy out of Hubbardston expense, 105. And then 1,600 out of Hubbardston preservation for our part in the appraisal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
We don't,
right.
we're not going to formally, is it sort of understood then though that Hubbardston preservation would be where the money for Robert would come from? Because that's the.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. So, and we
That's-
still have
that's,
enough.
Yeah, and then we don't have to cut that or worry about any invoices or anything on that. We just approved that that's where we would take that money from when we engage that effort.
So does she need a second on that motion?
What was the motion?
Oh, I moved that we pay those bills in that form, in that way. Want me to go? over
Everybody,
it?
is everybody clear with that?
I am.
Yeah.
All right. So you want to make a motion to allocate those funds to cover those expenses as Susan stated?
So moved.
So moved. Second,
Second.
Steph,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Bob, yes, unanimous. Hey, Steph, a standing ovation. The, all right, so that, take that. So there's, okay, is there anything else we want to do here in the late
Hay
hour?
money.
What?
Have we gotten paid for the hay this summer yet?
I'm still looking into that, Mr. Rick.
I think some money had come in, but I'm not sure of that, so I'll leave that for Susan for the next meeting. The, at this point, and there's a couple other things we haven't talked to, but I think we got most of the critical ones. We haven't talked about the performance on the hay contract, protocols for communication between meetings, et cetera. My vote would be to discuss those at the next meeting unless anybody else wants to take them up right now. Any comments?
Next meeting sounds good.
Any other new business that we need to take up?
So when is the next meeting? I missed it.
Next, that's
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
It'll be like next week.
Well, we set it for next week, so if
Today's
it gets delayed, we can.
What's today's date?
The 20th.
The
26th.
if you go for the last Tuesday of the subsequent month, that would be the 24th of November. That's a couple days before is 24th of November okay? Unless we need to meet.
Yeah, I'll be around.
Is that Thanksgiving week?
Yes, it is.
That is Thanksgiving week.
I think we should do something sooner.
Yes.
All right.
So that we can follow up with the Robert thing.
Yeah.
The 10th or the 17th?
10th.
So right now we're at the 20th. So 1 week, 2 week would be the 3rd. So 3 weeks from now would,
Go the other way.
oops, I went the wrong way. I'm going backwards in time. Be quiet, Susan. Steph's pointing to tell me how to move the calendar along, and I got Susan laughing, and geez. The recording of this meeting ought to be great. The 10th or the 17th. How's that?
Let's do the 10th.
10th. Yes.
We got some things that we might need to move quickly on.
Okay. All right. Next meeting will be the 10th. That's
November 10th
November 10th.
11/10.
at 7 p.m.
That's a Tuesday then, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And we will have this ability to get the meeting started. So we lost 20 minutes in getting the meeting started, but that's better than it's much better because we were able to hold it. All right. My comment on trail status, most everything seems to be clear. There's one good size oak that Steph and I, one of our rider families found on red oak. There's one big oak on red oak, might even be a red oak. Who knows? A red oak down on red oak. And then Mark found a tree that was down somewhere.
Is it Gates you said or Mark?
Is that the tree?
What was that term you
Oh,
used?
Widowmaker.
Tree?
A widowmaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right when you get up the steep part and it levels off, it's right there
Oh.
on Muzzy Ridge.
Yeah. Todd, you and I, you want to
Yeah,
share
yeah,
that?
I'm available.
Okay.
So what is that? A tree that's about to fall?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Is that what that means? It's because it's
Yeah.
like a widowmaker?
Right.
It's like caught and it's about, and at some point it'll just come down and make some.
Make a widow out of somebody. All right. Motion to adjourn.
Oh.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Do I hear any objections to adjourning? Hearing none, I'll call the meeting closed. Thank you all.